And you'll discover how even the most complex accounts payable processing can be standardized for multiple locations and divisions through a complex network of vendors and a variety of invoice formats. Complex operations, geographically dispersed locations, disparate divisions, and systems all present a challenge when unifying and standardizing back-end processes. So accounts payable can often be under pressure to implement various efficiency measures, and yet it is still a largely fragmented process, reliant on a multitude of vendors, each of whom issue invoices in different formats and with different distribution methods, for example. So let's talk about Canon. I won't bore you with a lot of information on who Canon is. I think at this point it's safe to assume that most of you are familiar with Canon. As a matter of fact, I've yet to attend a presentation in person where there was a single audience member who did not own a Canon piece of equipment today or had never owned a Canon piece of equipment and loved it. So, so I'm going to talk on a very high level about Canon. We are the most admired company in the world, by me. But no, honestly, we are the fourth most admired company in the tech industry, according to the Fortune magazine. We are one of the most ethical companies, and we are the top 5 patent earners in the U.S., usually the top 3. And the asterisks on those quotations or those phrases mean it's not just us saying that. You know, those are truly published facts. So let's talk about my little company inside Canon. CIIS, which stands for Canon Information and Imaging Solutions, was initially formed in 2011. What we do is we offer process automation, business process automation, leveraging our imaging expertise and our document workflow know-how to provide you with complete end-to-end document management solutions and business process automation. We are a strong Oracle partner and a OVI or Oracle Validated Integration Company. So our solution has been OVI certified to run with J.D. Edwards as with PeopleSoft and eBusiness Suite. We deploy solutions in partnership with partners like GSI for implementation. So they provide a bulk of our subject matter ERP expertise. So cash management is more important than ever today. Improving cash flow analysis is a top finance and administration priority of senior finance executives, according to the Institute of Finance and Management. Finance must harness the collective ability of the entire organization to help drive internal process efficiencies and optimize working capital. One of finance's largest opportunities to impact the cash flow and the financial performance of the enterprise lies within the accounts payable department. Automating the accounts payable function enables organizations to improve working capital management through extended days payable outstanding, or DPO, payment optimization, more early payment discount capture opportunities, and the ability to earn cashback rebates on supplier payments made via P-card, for instance, and not to mention better vendor relations. So in fact, studies have shown that optimizing cash management with an automated accounts payable solution delivers 5 times as much financial benefit as simply automating invoice processing. So cash management continues to be a major challenge. 45% of companies, or I said most companies, of the companies queried in a study by the Institute of Finance and Management, 45% say that the lack of visibility into invoices and payables information is really, really critical to the health of their business. 42% have difficulty handling, managing, and finding invoices. 38% say that the cost to process invoices are exorbitantly high. And 17% said the capturing vendor discounts continues to be an elusive goal. I'm really surprised that it's only 17% for this metric. I think this metric is definitely going up rapidly as companies become more and more aware of the benefits of early payment discounts. So more finance leaders are recognizing that suppliers can be leveraged for a competitive advantage and mutual gain. How accounts payable departments approach their supplier interactions and the results derived from them will have an increasing impact on enterprise operations and overall financial performance in 2019. Although many of the more critical elements of supplier management will and should remain firmly in the hands of procurement, there are some supplier management elements that can be augmented by accounts payable automation. For instance, 75% of best-in-class accounts payable departments are responsible for managing real-time supplier inquiries and requests, according to Ardent Partners research. While 62% of best-in-class accounts payable departments are responsible for managing the vendor master file. And 40% of best-in-class accounts payable departments are actively involved in sourcing. So by automating invoice receipt, matching, and processing, accounts payable departments can help ensure efficient and effective supplier management and avoid supply chain disruptions and cash flow problems. Okay. Accounts payable departments are taking a bigger and bigger role within the finance within finance departments. And the areas currently managed or supported by accounts payable are basically supplier relationship management, directly influencing enterprise cash flow and corporate liquidity, driving financial visibility, and providing intelligence to key stakeholders, among others. So more finance leaders are adopting data-driven approaches to accelerating financial performance. The invoice and operational data that flow through the accounts payable function presents a deep well of untapped financial and business data that can be extracted and converted into intelligence. 26% of finance leaders say that data is critical to their function, according to an Ardent Partners report. Yet 45% of senior finance executives lack visibility into invoices and payables information, and 42% of senior finance executives have difficulty managing and finding invoices, again, according to the Institute of Finance and Management. So automation provides accounts payable with the ability to monitor relevant key performance metrics, access real-time financial data, drill down into data for better decision-making, instantly export information to decision makers, generate ad hoc reports, and provide management with easy access to the information they need, how and when they need it. So how does finance use the accounts payable data? Well, I'll start from the highest percentage response, according to the Institute of Finance Management: forecasting, budgeting, and planning, handling invoice exceptions, finance and procurement collaboration with their vendors, developing payment strategies with the vendors, enhancing supplier management and supplier relationships, and cash flow management. I mean, these are all key initiatives for any finance organization. And higher profit margins are also a direct benefit of AP automation. So the average invoice processing cost in a manual transaction can be upwards of $15. I've seen it a lot higher than that, as a matter of fact. But let's talk about automation alone. With a simple level of automation, the worst-in-class solutions would help you decrease the cost per invoice processed down to under $9. But that number goes significantly lower if you employ best-in-class automation like Canon. The benefits can be tremendous, down to almost, or I should say, down to under $2 an invoice. The best AP solutions will not only support your current needs, but future needs. Beyond the efficiency gains and savings that may be a widely known benefit of automation, there is an entirely new level of business intelligence that can be gained as a result of the information flow being visible, accessible, and reliable and accurate. Visibility into invoices and payables, not only for the accounts payable departments, but also for procurement, planning, customer service, sales, and other corporate stakeholders, allows them to make timely and accurate decisions that help their business. Enabled by the visibility of the real-time spend analysis, which can help in sourcing, say, what-if scenarios, supplier consolidation and diversification, improved contractual compliance, risk mitigation, and fraud detection. So as a result, accounts payable departments and accounts payable functions can evolve as they are no longer perceived as a cost center to the organization, and they start to have a more strategic role, bringing real value add to the company. There's more time for value-added activities for your staff. They can be more productive, ensuring contract compliance with the vendors, mitigating compliance issues, rationalizing supplier spend, managing accruals and budget, forecasting cash flow, and managing cash flow. So at the end of the day, considering what I've just said, the 5 key KPIs for success are reducing the cost per invoice processed, making the staff more productive, paying more invoices on time, and duplicate payments, catching duplicate payments, fraud mitigation, early payment discounts capturing. So you're able to actually generate a profit from a process that's otherwise considered a cost-based process. So before I turn it over to Cliff for a demo of our solution, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and talk about one of my clients, a large civil engineering and construction company. They have about 12,000 employees, about 16,000 vendors. They make all kinds of they do all kinds of civil engineering and construction projects, and majority of their invoices are paper-based and PO-based. So some of the challenges that they were facing were they had a solution in place. They had an automation solution in place, but it was not fulfilling their needs. They had a very poor user experience and adoption rate. They have 12 business units, so they're looking to centralize and automate all across the platform. And all 12 business units were on the same ERP system, JD Edwards. They wanted to replace the existing solution with a much higher and sophisticated level of automation. They wanted a simple user interface for greater user adoption. And they wanted the ability to maintain separation of invoices and workflow rules by division. So the software, the solution they chose was Canon because it provided them with a more sophisticated, intelligent invoice capture technology. Users are able to see the document image right from within JD Edwards and search documents by keywords. Business analytics, our solution provided them with access to information for not only just their JDE users, but also some of the non-JDE users, including contractors, as well as key decision makers. And it standardized the workflow across the enterprise. And some of the benefits they realized as a result of the solution was easy access to information for business analytics, improved control over data and processes, accurate and timely data for financial reporting, improved accuracy, transparency, compliance, and a overall more efficient process to save their cost per invoice processed. So at this point in time, I am going to turn it over to Cliff, who is actually going to talk about our methodology and show you a demo. And as Brooke mentioned earlier, please feel free to enter your questions into the chat box, and we will address those after this presentation. Thank you.
Hi, Brooke, can I share my desktop, please?
Yep, no problem.
I don't see the option right now.
Okay, let me know if you see it.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
I will show my screen right now, and please, if you don't see me throwing a slide up right now, let me know. Otherwise, I'll assume you do see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So thank you as well, Bob, and everyone else for joining us and giving us this opportunity to speak to you today. I will show the demo shortly in just a few minutes. It would be helpful, though, if I could just step through this this diagram here that just describes an automated process, a given automated process within Accounts Payable. If you notice here on the diagram, the bottom two swim lanes that you see here with the blue shading in the background, each one of those represents either modules in our solution or steps in the automated process within our solution. Just so you know, there's two families of modules. Everything is provided by Canon. It's all Canon product, produced, developed, supported by Canon, implemented by Canon people. But there are two families of modules. Iris Extract has to do with the capture of documents and extraction of information from them. And Enterprise Imaging Platform, which we sometimes call EIP, is the integration with JD Edwards and the workflow and the content repository, and that really critical middle piece. So if I could just step through the process with you sort of quickly here. So we recognize at the top left section here that suppliers submit invoices to buying orgs, buying organizations. They do, of course, can come through many channels, as Bob made a reference to, including EDI and XML and e-invoicing networks and that sort of thing. But for the sake of simplicity, it's still very common for invoices to be paper invoices that are mailed or invoice documents that are attached to emails and sent directly to a supplier. So that's what I'm showing here as two channels. That could be happening now or even in the future with our process. For paper, obviously, that would be mailed and opened up by some personnel in AP or mailroom. That would normally require scanning. If you need to do so, of course, you could do it through something like an MFP device, or if you do have a dedicated scanner for a dedicated workstation, I should say, for scanning, high volumes of documents, you could do that with our PowerScan module. You don't even have to use PowerScan, but it is quite useful, and I'll show it to you as we do the demo. And of course, for invoices that are sent attached to emails, there's a component with our solution called XMail Fetcher that automatically intercepts those emails, if you will, and strips those invoices out so they can be processed just as if they had been scanned. But once those two are done, there are two processes that run in the background on a server that the user really doesn't interact with, but it's kind of important to just know that they're there. Import ingests those invoices, it brings them into the system, and analyze is really important because that's where the main work of this Iris Extract technology takes place, where it actually reads that character data off of those invoice documents to save you from having to enter that, or someone else from having to enter that when the voucher is created and matched to purchase orders. And it also tends to be more accurate as well for that to be done automatically. But when it's required, there could be some interaction by AP staff through this verify module that I'm showing here as the next step. AP people might be scanning and verifying invoices like it shows here where it's required if they don't analyze in a complete and validated status. Just to explain that, if an invoice analyzes where it doesn't require verification, you can decide to have that bypass the verify module if that meets your requirements. That way, it's more efficient to not have to touch every invoice, but that's completely optional. You don't have to decide to do that. And if you do it, it would be normally done on a supplier by supplier basis. But at any rate, the verification step, like I'm mentioning here, you'll see that shortly in the demo. That's where the AP person will compare the image of the invoice that's been captured along with the data that was captured from it, that was automatically populated. And they also verify how that validates early against JD Edwards. So the supplier is automatically identified, the supplier is validated, it has to be a good supplier that's in the JD Edwards address book. Any purchase order information, if present, has to be validated or can be validated there to make sure that the PO belongs to that supplier, for example. The company that's being billed, the buying organization or business unit company code within JD Edwards is validated and automatically captured as well. And there's even the ability to do things like PO matching or GL coding directly within Verify if you want to do it that early in the process. But at any rate, assuming it's required, like if the PO is not yet matched by AP or if the GL coding is not yet provided by AP, the invoice can then be completed and it will flow automatically into EIP, which is basically the interaction by the user is through workflow notifications normally. So non-PO invoices, if it's required, they'll be routed out to the appropriate person responsible for providing that GL information that's validated within JD Edwards. And once that's been provided, if they have approval authority, it can be approved. If not, they'll generally climb a hierarchy if that's been set up in our solution or in JD Edwards for the invoice to be approved before creating the voucher in JD Edwards. If an invoice requires PO matching and it's not done in Verify or match corrections need to be made, that can be done within EIP as well. Sometimes we'll have optional approval for two-way PO invoices for services, for example. But at any rate, once the invoice has been coded, approved, or matched, it will automatically create a voucher in JD Edwards and it will attach links to the content. So that original invoice image, all the workflow history, audit trail, collaboration notes, any supporting documentation, all of that is stored within our solution for retrieval. All we do is add links to JD Edwards, the Cafe One integration to retrieve that information, which is really rich, the Cafe One integration. And then from that point forward, really, the accounts payable process is essentially the same as what you do today as far as scheduling invoices for payment and interfacing with general ledger and that sort of thing. So what I'll do here is I'll just start up a demo. Like I mentioned, I'll sort of tie it back to the diagram that we just stepped through. One of the things I showed there was the scanning opportunity with the Power Scan module. So this is what the Power Scan module looks like. It's got quite robust. I would say it's quite special for this type of document processing, much more so than just a generic scan or capture application. And so you'll see that there are some batches set up there for JD Edwards. That's just for this demo environment. So the process to start a new batch, as I've got invoices sitting here, is to just create a new batch. It's already been set up as far as the configuration. And right now we'll feed invoices in from the scanner into the batch. I'm just sitting here and watching them feed through. Looks like we've got two invoices here that have been processed through. So you see there the batch has two invoices. You can see the images of the invoices over to the right. And if you needed to do something like maybe mark certain pages as attachments or merge pages into a scan from something that had already been scanned, or even decided to just delete that batch, you can do all of that through here, through the menu operation that you see here. But what I'll do here, though, to continue on is just process this batch. As soon as I process it, it commits those invoices and feeds them out into that import and analyze step that I showed you earlier on the diagram. And that's what I'll do now. Now I'll jump ahead and launch into the Verify module, since those documents have just been imported and analyzed. And once I open the Verify module, I can just start I'll start a job, which is essentially a document, one document with however many pages it might contain. And you'll see here within Verify, I have the ability, of course, to view the invoice image in the middle portion of the screen there. I can view the related document, the related information that's been populated from the image. I can see that over to the right-hand side of the screen. So what's really important about this is, well, it's all important information, obviously, but one key piece of this process is the identification of the supplier. In the vast majority of cases, it's extremely high. I don't have a specific number. I would say 95% or higher of the cases, the AP person does not have to choose the supplier. The supplier has been automatically identified from the document or because the invoice is processed through the system before. This essentially what you would see here is where the supplier has been automatically identified. So if you notice in the top left-hand portion of the invoice image, you'll see the supplier's name and address information. And over to the right-hand side where the data is actually populated, you'll see the vendor number and the company code and the vendor information beneath that, the address information. What's happened here is that the supplier has been automatically identified by the system. This usually happens automatically even the first time that an invoice is presented to the system, as long as any information that identifies that supplier is present on the document. So in this case, you'll see the street address information that's printed on the document. It matches what's in JD Edwards. So it will do an automatic match or automatic identification of the supplier. It's not limited by any means to just street address information. It can be based on any attributes that are related to the supplier in JD Edwards, like the bank account information and things like that, the bank number and the account number at the bank and those sorts of things, emails and phone numbers, anything that's really unique. But at any rate, you see it's been identified. The vendor address information printed here in blue shading on the side of on the right side there, that's actually what's been retrieved from PeopleSoft to do that comparison. So that's how automatic vendor identification happens. If you see, like I mentioned here, you'll see that it's all there. But you might wonder what happens if you need to make a correction. Well, I'm going to show you that now. It's possible always that you might have to make a correction. If you notice here, what I've done is while my focus was in the vendor number field, I pressed the hotkey. And if you notice at the bottom portion of the screen now, I've been presented with a search grid into my vendor master in JD Edwards. So I simply hit enter. You'll see that it populates with all the suppliers that are in JD Edwards and their appropriate information that are defined for those suppliers and more. This is completely configurable what shows down there. And from that list I just showed, I could choose a different supplier if that was necessary. And once I've done so, I can train the system then to always automatically recognize that supplier just by simply pressing a hotkey at that point. But I didn't have to do it here. The supplier was automatically recognized, which is a good thing. So now I'll kind of toggle down to where the fields are what I'll call straight capture. If you notice there, the invoice date of September 1st has been captured. The due date has been captured. Tax amount, the total amount. Those fields are already captured based on the labels associated with them. You might wonder what happens if a field didn't automatically capture though. And what it does is it uses those standard titles that you see there to automatically capture these fields. So I didn't have to set up anything special for this demo, for this invoice to automatically capture. But if something like, if you notice the invoice number field there, it's been automatically captured from that left-hand portion of the diagram there. If though I needed to, if a field hadn't captured though, you might wonder what it looks like, and I'll clear out the invoice number field where it's been populated to the right side there. So you see it there that it's now clear, and also the system is validating and telling me I can't move forward with committing the invoice because the field can't be empty. So you see where it was captured from, but if I needed to automatically capture it on the fly because it hadn't captured through the analyze, if you notice here, I'll just simply touch my mouse to the field on the image there. As soon as I touch it, it automatically just now captured it and populated it. That's important, but what's really more important is that if I press a certain hotkey at this point, it will actually train the system like you see here with this message that the field invoice number has been trained. So again, I didn't have to do that there because the invoice number automatically captured. That was just a way to illustrate how you can make a correction if it hadn't captured because of some non-standard or really unusual label that the vendor printed on the document. So here you'll see that as an AP person, I can enter a comment or a request that's going to flow out in workflow with the invoice. And I'm just going to, at this point, I can really just commit this invoice so it will flow out of the iris extract capture component. So what I'll do now is we don't really have to look at verify too much more. I'll bring up iris extract, EIP, which is accessible through a web interface. And I sent that invoice that you just saw to a username operations. I forgot to mention that when I actually had it up, but I did route it to a username operations or Pat Stock for her to perform the account coding for this. It's a non-PO invoice. So what I've just done here is I would have received an email notification to work on this invoice if I were Pat Stock, but also you'll see that I could log into the EIP system like you see here and see all of the invoices that either I have access to or that require my attention. And that's what I've done here. I've logged in as Pat Stock or operations, and I can see all those invoices that I can access. To see those that require my attention, I simply press the little envelope button there towards the top right, and I can choose my queue. Those will be all the invoices that are waiting for me to take some action on. I would have just received an email telling me to do so as well. So if you notice from here, it's filtered that list down. And there at the very top, you'll see the invoice that we just processed through Verify a moment ago. If I just edit that invoice from here, you'll see that I can now perform the account coding, which is what I'm being requested to do. So if you notice, there are some shortcuts here like aliases to standard codes for the supplier, or even my own little personal list of common codes that I can draw from automatically, or I can just code the invoice fresh to whatever accounting structure JD Edwards will support and validate in this instance. So that's what I'm going to do. If you notice there, as I bring up that GL account field at the bottom, you'll notice that it's being constrained to certain segments and values. Those are the ones that are only allowed within JD Edwards. It won't allow me to put in anything that's not validated by JD Edwards. So if you notice there, I created that line with that accounting information. I just accounted the whole invoice to one account, but of course I could have broken it down to as many accounts as I needed to split it up. So it's been coded. I can just update it really now, and to make it quick, I can just submit it for approval, which is what I'm doing. And you'll see now that it says the approval policy is started. No longer saying pending coding review. And I've sent it out to a user named Casey Brown for it to be approved. And I'm signed in, like you see here, as operations or Pat Stock. But to see how it looks from the approver's perspective, I will I'll log in as Casey Brown. And just like the approver, I can show my queue. Just like the coder, excuse me, I can show my queue by pressing the list there. If there's ever any question about who's logged in, you can just look in that very top right corner there. See it says C Brown or Casey Brown. But so then what I can do is just look at the invoices that are needing my attention. In the very top one there, it says pending management approval. It's that non-PO invoice we just now coded as operations. And now you can even click on the step to see the workflow history there. You can see that it was at 11:56. It was scanned and captured through Verify and approved and validated through Verify. It routed out just 2 minutes later to Pat Stock for how to perform account coding, which you saw just a minute ago as operations. And then it's with me now, Casey Brown, for it to be approved. Now, just to show you how it got here, in case you're curious, I've set up an approval policy, which is like a workflow rules, basically, where I said that if you notice here, you'll see that if the invoice is for less than 100, the original person approving it can approve it. If it's for greater than $100, it has to be automatically routed to the manager in the same division. And that's what's happened here. The person that did the original approval, Pat Stock, she only had approval authority for 100 and invoices for $322. So that's why it routed automatically to the manager in that division, who happens to be Casey Brown. So you can also, if you notice that, one of the things I'm being requested there is to upload content. The AP person asks that through a comment and verify. I can do that here, just added some additional content. And from here, just so you'll know, you can view the invoice image as well. I haven't really shown that. If you look at the link there at the top, you can view the invoice image. But here, I'll just add a comment letting them know that I've complied with their request to attach that document. So you see that little audit trail back there with the time and date stamp showing that I did comply with their request. Like I mentioned, if you want to view the invoice image from here, you can do so simply by clicking the hyperlink that's on that invoice details page. I'll just approve this invoice now to send it through. So now that it's been approved, the system will automatically create a voucher in JD Edwards. In fact, if you look there, it happens very quickly through a web service. If you look at the very top right portion of my screen, you'll see that it says JDE voucher has been created. And I can even click on that like I did earlier, and you'll see that audit trail once again. But here what I've done is I've clicked the link that was on the screen that had the voucher ID. And this gives you the ability to navigate to your transaction in JD Edwards directly from EIP, which is what I just did. I just pressed the link that was returned back from JD Edwards when the voucher was created. And if you notice here, like I said, it navigates me to that screen within JD Edwards. You'll see from here to the left-hand portion, it should look really familiar to you. You might be, or someone might be entering this information today to create invoices. It was all automatically populated through our solution in this example. So if you notice there, you'll see to the top right section, though, what Bob mentioned about the Cafe One integration. This is how it looks. The panel there that says attach content essentially gives you a window into your content that's all associated with approving this invoice, but it's all stored in our repository within the EIP product, so as not to burden your JD Edwards database or anything like that with all this additional images and things like that. If you notice, I click that top link there to the right, it will launch a viewer, and I can now see the invoice image regardless of how many pages it is. I'll see that within that window. These are all sizable. Every single window is sizable and movable and everything. I can see that. And I also had attached a statement, a PDF file called a directive statement. And you'll see where I can now bring that up from here as well. And if you notice, there's another thing that's quite useful, users seem to really like. I can actually drag and drop content. Even though the voucher is already in JD Edwards, it's still not too late to add content to it. I can just drag and drop this image, if you see here, from my desktop to that window, and it will attach that content directly right there, so I can view it in the future. And then, of course, there's comments here. I can add an additional comment that I attached the flow diagram that can be added once the voucher has been created as well. But just to remind you how it looks, I could just click once more on that link and display the invoice image, which is what you'll see here, and that can be sized according to however you want to see it. So that's really it for today for this little short demo. Hope that you enjoyed seeing it as much as I enjoyed delivering it. Now I'll turn it back over to Bob or Brick for any final comments or questions that we might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Cliff and Bob. Bob, was there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I would love the opportunity to answer questions, and also for the audience to know that if there's a question that either we're not able to answer right now or you'd like to not ask today, please feel free to reach out to GSI or Canon, and we'd be glad to either present a separate demo and have a one-on-one discussion with you, or answer your questions via email. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob and Cliff. I really appreciate it. I just want to cover a few follow-up items, and then we'll move into our question and answer section of the webcast. And our webcast today is a part of GSI's free ongoing educational webcast series in JD Edwards. And our upcoming webcasts are currently listed on the screen, and we update it every day. So make sure to get our most up-to-date schedule, go to getgsi.com/webcasts. And GSI provides an extensive free educational resource center to our JD Edwards community, including our weekly educational webcasts, our monthly newsletter called the GSI Insider, as well as our online resource center where you can access our on-demand webcasts, white papers, and so much more. And now, if you'd like to sign up for our email reminders for upcoming webcasts or our monthly newsletter, or to create an account to access our resource center, go to getgsi.com, go to Platforms on the main menu, and then select the appropriate platform. All right, and I see we have a few questions here, but before we jump into those, I'd like to remind everyone that if you would like to submit a question, you can still do so using the questions panel in the GoToWebinar console window on the right side of your screen. And if you minimized your console earlier, please click the left-facing arrow key to redisplay the questions panel. All right, so Bob and Cliff, it looks like I've got my first question here. And it is from Bill, and he said, how do you integrate with JDE?
Yes, I'll take that, Bob, if it's okay. We do that through a series of published web services that JD Edwards provides, especially for the transactional data. So if we need to read PO or supplier information from JD Edwards, or accounting information, for example, to validate it, that's through these published web services that JD Edwards provides. With the content, it's still the same thing, but it's something that we sort of are uniquely advantaged to offer, and that's through that Cafe One integration that I showed you, which is really advanced. And I don't know that many software vendors yet that are really taking advantage of it. The creation of the voucher in JD Edwards is actually done real time though. There's no delay waiting for vouchers to be created or anything like that. And since you did mention how we integrate, I should mention too, if I didn't make it clear enough, when we create the voucher within that Cafe One screen, it's simply the links to your content that are stored there. Your actual content stored in our repository. And all of this is supported by Oracle, or I should say it's validated by Oracle Solutions and Oracle validated integration. That means that they've inspected it and tested it and gone through it backwards and forwards, basically to give it their blessing that we've done this according to their integration standards, and also to give you the reassurance, that it doesn't hamper your ability to receive support from Oracle or upgrades from Oracle in terms of JD Edwards.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I have another question here, and it's from Steve, and he says, can this software handle one PDF attachment with multiple invoices in it, or must it be one PDF for each invoice?
It can handle one PDF with multiple attachments, and doing so, there are several ways to automatically separate those into separate invoices when they have to be processed. There are some parameters that can be set that have to do with the number of pages for a document that will help drive that. There's also an ability through a classification capability to set up something where it will recognize new invoices just based on the fact that a new invoice number appears. But both of those are part and parcel of the solution.
Okay, great. And I have one more question here from Brenda. And she said, does the email containing the invoice need to be touched by the AP department to import it, or will the software extract it automatically?
The latter is the case. It will do that automatically.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. That appears to be the end of our questions today. I want to thank you again, Bob and Cliff, for your presentation today, and everybody for your questions. And as a follow-up from today's webcast, we ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey when you exit, and you will be receiving an email with a link to our Resource Center on our website where you can access the recording from today's webcast as well as a copy of the presentation. And after today's webcast, we will do a drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card, and anyone that attended the entire webcast will be eligible, and we will notify the winner. Thank you again, everybody, for attending and our presentation today, and we hope that you have a great day.